Good evening. This meeting of the East Lyme Planning Commission is now in order. I'd like to introduce Ann Thurlow, who I've seated, for Francine Schwartz, Ernie Covino, Rita Palazzo. My name's Brian Shook, John Bankston, Frank Belantic. Please join us for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Our first order of business is the continuation of a public hearing, the application of Wayne and Patricia E. Frazier, applicant owner, application for a one-lot re-subdivision of approximately 3 acres zoned RU10 at 22 Gurley Road, East Lyme, Assessors Map 37, Lot 20, and a waiver request from Section 4-2-3B and Section 4-2-3J and Section 6-8 of the East Lyme subdivision regulations. As we left off at our last meeting, we were reviewing some of the waivers. The question of an archaeological survey had come up. Mr. Gaishel, could you fill us in on how that went?
Yes. I guess just to add, I want to add items to the record that was submitted at the last meeting. I believe it was the revised subdivision plan. That was Exhibit M, entitled Property of Wayne and Patricia E. Frazier, 22 Gurley Road, East Lyme, Connecticut, dated July 1, 2015, revised through 8/11/15. Exhibit N was a letter to Fanner and Associates from Brian D. Jones, state archaeologist of Yukon, dated 9/3/2015. And now Exhibit O is a letter from Sarah Holmes, PhD, is archaeologist consultant, and that is dated September 14th, 2015. And I guess it's short enough, I think we could just read it into the record. That's acceptable. It says, Dear Wayne, I am pleased to inform you.
Could you just provide context of
Sure.
How this came
So
to down?
if you recall the last meeting, Dr. Brian Jones, the state archaeologist, had recommended a Phase 1A/B assessment and reconnaissance survey be undertaken prior to the proposed development due to the potential of the presence of historical and Native American archaeological resources. As a result, Mr. Frazier pursued Sarah Holmes, or Dr. Sarah Holmes. She's with archaeology consultant out of Mystic, Connecticut. That letter reads, Dear Wayne, I am pleased to inform you the Phase 1 archaeological testing conducted at 22 Gurley Road in East Lyme on September 12, 2015 did not indicate any National Register eligible sites will be impacted by the construction of a dwelling on the property. Although artifacts were identified, including historic creamware fragments and quartzite lithic flakes, it was determined this evidence did not merit recording a site number with the State Historic Preservation Office. Connecticut State Archaeologist Dr. Brian Jones has been consulted on this issue and is in agreement with the recommendation that no further work is required. A memo describing the archaeological testing results will be submitted to the State Historic Preservation Office for their files. Wish you the best moving forward with your construction. Thank you for the opportunity to work in East Lyme. Sincerely, Sarah Holmes. So I think that answers the question regarding the archaeological survey and that requirement. So I think in terms of the waiver, there's no longer a need for a waiver from that section requiring the report. The report's been completed and that requirement satisfied.
So, Gary?
Yes.
I mean, there's 3 sections that would require a waiver. Went by a little quick for me. Which section does that cover?
4-2-3-B.
B. Thank you. Bravo.
So that aspect of the application is no longer
No
relevant.
longer correct. Right.
They don't need that waiver anymore.
Correct.
Okay. That leaves section 4-2-3J and section 6-8. I recognize 6-8 is stormwater.
Yes.
4-2-3J is open space.
I believe that's correct, yes.
Okay. So if we're going to discuss the waivers sequentially, the first one, 4-2-3B, is the archaeology. No longer, it's no longer relevant. Second one is 4-2-3J, which is open space. Could you describe what the applicant is proposing?
Well, the applicant's requesting a waiver from having to provide any open space.
Yep.
So I guess there's really nothing to describe there other than there's the request to provide any. I think in terms of the location, in the amount, you're looking at, 3 acres, 10% of that. It's very nominal if you were to provide the open space, and the question is, where would you provide it, where it would have any meaning to the town? That's the.
Would the applicant like to speak about the waiver for the open space?
Yes, for the record, Wayne Frazier, 22 Gurley Road. Yes, quarter acre zoning, acre and a half lot, one house. We're providing probably over half or more of an acre that's not going to be built on. Plus, my lot is split, so that's an acre and a half with just one house. So I don't know what else to say other than there's no open space to be contiguous with, which I know is the plan normally of the town, to have contiguous open spaces, not little spots in different locations. So that's about all I can offer on that one.
Okay. With respect to our regulations, we have guidelines for when we can issue a waiver. I don't know, Frank, if you're near it or if...
Yeah, I'm not sure that it applies in this, as Mr. Frazier's kind of pointed to. I believe this might be in the cluster development where we require a certain percentage to be set aside. But I can go to the waiver specifically, but I don't think this is applicable. And here are the words: an open space report consisting of a narrative indicating how the proposed open space dedication meets the objectives outlined in section 7-2 and the proposed method of conveyance. It's almost as if applicable, should be added at the end of that sentence. Any letters from organizations stating their willingness to accept open space as required in section 7-3-1, I'll go there in a second, and draft legal documents as required. So this would be a plan for all of the legal documents that would run in parallel to the subdivision, were open space actually required, which I do not believe it is. 7-3, then conveyance of open space. This is how it would be conveyed in the plan. Therefore, the Planning Commission shall determine the most appropriate method of conveyance after considering the relationship of the subject areas and its specific characteristics to the plan of development and the objective cited in section 7-2, the desirability and suitability of public access and use in the scope of the subdivision proposal. And then there are options of conveyance, and 7-3-1, which we did refer back in the 4-2-3J. 7-3-1 is very short. If an applicant proposes dedication of open space to the state of Connecticut, the East Lyme Land Trust, or any private organization, a letter from an authorized agent for the state or private organization stating its willingness to accept the open space shall be included with the application. I don't think we're in a place where open space is expected. Mr. Gazel can correct me, but I think that's the cluster development where we are talking about 10 acres or so. No?
I believe you're accurate on that. I think the intent is that the open space, I'm going to try to get to section 7 here just to confirm, but
I can't read that fast.
You were quicker on finding the waiver requirements if you want to take a look.
I think I dog eared.
Yeah, okay.
Looking at the general statement here, the Planning Commission shall require provision of this section in the subdivision of any parcel of 10 acres or more in area, or any subdivision of 4 or more lots. So I would concur that.
Almost puts us into a not applicable instead of a waiver required, I think.
Okay, you're in 7.2. These waivers are covered by the waiver language in 4-12, right?
Correct.
It's the same type of waiver. So the language that I use as a guideline here, waivers only as specifically authorized within these regulations. The commission may waive certain requirements by a 3/4 vote of all members when it is demonstrated that strict compliance with such regulations will cause exceptional difficulty or undue hardship. So with respect to the waiver for open space, my question is, how would strict compliance, which is the 10% to the town, cause exceptional difficulty or undue hardship?
Well, if I was to give you 10% of the 1.5 acres in the middle of my backyard, I guess somebody'd have to mow it. I mean,
Good point.
my whole lot for 35 years has been mowed by me, so I'd hate to give away something that's never going to be used by anyone other than our enjoyment, and so on and so forth. So, I mean, I read the regs too when we first met with Gary, and I went back to the other side where it was the 10 acres or the 4 lots.
So what's interesting is 7.2-1 just indicates for conventional subdivisions less than 4 lots or less than 10 acres, open space shall be dedicated in the amount of 10% for the gross land area of the subdivision. You're talking about a strip of 13,000 square feet. I mean, could he provide it? Certainly, but we have to access it, or it has to be, policed by somebody. And then, going back to here, it's really, I think, the intent of the regulation is that subdivisions of any parcel 10 acres or more is really where it's geared toward. And as you apply these regulations, it drives a developer to do a conservation subdivision. And in the spirit of that context is that you have larger subdivisions in which you get larger quantities of open space. So you have more meaningful open space that's contiguous and uninterrupted. That's the intent behind these regulations. So,
is it section 4 which speaks to it being contiguous?
No,
because it's
that would be section 5.
Almost
Section 5 of the regulations talks about you wanting open space to be contiguous, puts in it at what we call contextual priorities, and we talk about historical, archaeological, and open space and how things should be in vistas and things like that. So that whole section in our regs talks about those qualities. So that's what, we can go there if you want to read that, but
No, I don't need to.
thank you.
I would suggest this whole discussion is an unintended consequence of well-meaning words and that a waiver is
Exactly.
appropriate.
Exactly.
I think the key word that Gary said was meaningful open space, and you alluded to that.
Right. And I can say back 10, 12, 14 years ago when we changed these regulations, it was to stop the proliferation of small little tracts of land being given by developers that we really truly didn't want, but we were required to take by the regulations. So they were getting rid of things that didn't give them much value to their subdivision, where we wanted contiguous land which allowed the public to have more access to bigger tracts.
Are there any other comments or questions on that, on the second waiver, which is the open space? We've talked about archaeology. Open space is 2. Before we move on to 6-8, which is the stormwater. Gary, can you bring us back? Can you orient us on where we were with the stormwater regs and Victor Benny's memo?
Yes. I'm just going to scroll back. So in review of the plan, Exhibit H, which is a memo from Victor Benny to me, dated 8/25/2015, regarding the request for the waiver from Section 6. believe I commented at the last meeting that he had reviewed the plan and indicated that the application was eligible for the waiver request. That being said, essentially he has to demonstrate per section 6, and that's where I was headed here, that the proposed development will not exacerbate any downstream flooding, and that the water quality would not impair an adjacent wetland or watercourse. And that's in section 6-8-7 regarding the exemptions. So here we have a subdivision consisting of less than 3 lots. They're requesting a waiver, which has been, again, requested in writing in accordance with section 4-13. And so I think the applicant has demonstrated that it will not exacerbate downstream flooding. They're at the tail end of the watershed, so there's really nothing else to flood out there. And that the applicant can demonstrate that the water quality of the receiving aquifer, wetland, or watercourse is not adversely affected. Primarily, the applicant's proposing a gravel driveway. In addition, the roof runoff is typically considered clean runoff. So, there's a number of different methods. They can either let it sheet flow off the site or discharge it to a rain garden or an infiltrator that's subsurface. I don't think Mr. Benny commented on specifically.
Yes.
He just indicated that the roof runoff is generally considered clean and it'll be treated by a dry well. So they did make accommodations for that.
Very well. So the first waiver is irrelevant. The second one, from what we've discussed, I haven't heard any objections to. And the third one is the stormwater, which the surveyor and our town engineer have both been satisfied with. And we did hear during the public hearing from a neighbor there was concern over that, and so it's reasonable to find that their concern is been satisfied by.
I would say it was addressed. And it was.
Okay. Just as orientation, we're doing the public hearing now. This is on our agenda later tonight. Typically, prior to taking a motion, we ask for a memo from the town planner. That's how we've done it in the past. I've spoken to Mr. Gaishel, and he can have that ready for our next meeting. So if the commission members were satisfied, we could close the public hearing. If we don't hear any other comments, as far as making a decision later in the agenda, we'd probably wait until Mr. Gaishel ties it all together in a resolution for us. If the commission feels satisfied and wants to vote on it tonight, that's of course fine. But I was thinking we would sort that out here in the public hearing, so you guys can either leave or stay.
Well, I'm very much hoping you'll vote on it tonight.
Okay.
Because if it's not voted on tonight, we're going to miss the opportunity to order the house and to get it on the foundation this year. So, I'm hoping we're able to move on it tonight.
Very well.
It'd be very much appreciated, and I think hopefully we've done a good job. I believe it's a very good use of the land. It's one house where there could have been many. Over the years, I've lived there my entire life. I don't want to destroy the area. So 2 houses where there could have been duplexes and others put in with a small road is something I chose not to do 35 years ago when I purchased the land from my mother. And it's been in the family for a long time, and so I'd appreciate it if you could attend to it tonight.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment for during this public hearing? With well, let's close the public hearing. Can I get a motion for that?
So moved.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
Heard Ernie. Further discussion? Those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Does the commission feel like we should ask them to stick around?
I do.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yes.
Very well. That ends our public hearing, and we're moving on to our regular agenda. We've seated Ann Thurlow. With respect to the audience that we have here and out of consideration for them, I'd like to shuffle the agenda. We'll do minutes later. Does anyone have an objection to moving right to item 3A, the application of Wayne and Patricia Frazier of 22 Gurley Road?
No.
Okay, let's bump that up, and we can conduct our deliberations on it.
So I'm just going to ask you to take one and pass it down. So what I have here, as it pertains to this item, is basically it's an outline that I started drafting, is what I was unable to complete. So you'll see there's some blanks in it at the beginning. You'll kind of get the gist as you read through. It should be very familiar to most of you due to the previous application we just saw. So there will be things like exhibit item X or Y that has to get changed to correspond with what we have in the record. I'll be happy to provide clarification on those particular items if necessary.
And the process for this application would be to first take a motion on the waivers,
Correct.
and then sequentially move to the application as a whole.
Yes.
Very well.
You know, again, this is just a starting point for discussions. If you can synthesize this and make it shorter, by all means. I would just note that in terms of a waiver, it's the commission's responsibility to make findings on the record as to why the waiver should be granted. I think we had that discussion during the public hearing.
Right.
So we should be able to get to the finish line.
No, it'll be in this packet. The last page here is the motion that Gary had drafted, so this is Gary's draft.
You have the regs in front of you. The waiver, is that paragraph 412 or 413?
412.
412.
There you go. Well, as you can see, we got a lot of regulations that we need to digest, and with respect to this application, it's I think important to not get the water too muddy. It seems like you guys are trying to keep a parcel in the family, and this is exactly a simple kind of affair that doesn't need to get tangled up in all of the major subdivision scale concerns. So if you just bear with us, we're going to look to craft this motion. It appears Mr. Geishel has added 3 conditions.
Well, again, the draft.
Draft? Okay.
They may not be applicable. I believe item 3.
Yep.
Mr. Benny did not suggest that a bond be posted.
Is this town engineer thing number 2? Is that applicable? East Lyme Water Department?
No, that would be
That's out too.
yeah. I think based on the proposed plan and this particular, again, this is site specific. Although similar to the last application we saw, it is different. So I would not say that that's applicable.
Okay.
Because we're not asking them to revise their plan, whereas the last application they had to revise their plan before they filed the Mylar. So what basically the plan, the last revised plan that we have, upon the close of the public, that's going to be the Mylar copy that gets filed. There's no more revisions to that needed.
Okay, so
number 2 in this motion is not required. Number 3 is not required, and just to clarify why an E&S bond, Mr. Benny indicated that the erosion sedimentation control plan is not required as long as the disturbed area does not exceed 1/2 acre in size. According to the re-subdivision plan, the proposed site disturbance appears to be less than 1/2 acre in size. We just encourage them to follow best management practices.
So I'm looking for a motion that basically reflects the item on the agenda And format would just be to add a comment for the 4-2-3J and section 6.8, not the other waiver. So I believe with respect to the open space, we've agreed that the scale and the accessibility would render this any open space from this parcel less than useful to the town. Section 6-8 is covered by our town engineer and the surveyors and Mr. Gaishel's comments.
And the archaeological 4-2-3.
We're gonna just drop that one,
drop
yeah.
completely, so.
Yeah.
Exactly.
It's out.
Anybody want to take a crack at that motion?
Sure.
Let Frank do it. He's right
You
there.
do it.
Frank can do it. He already said yes.
I think we can incorporate both waivers into the same waiver motion.
Yes.
A motion that the planning commission moves to grant the waiver from subdivision regulation 4-2-3 Juliet open space report based upon the small scale involved and the specificity in other areas of developments greater than 10 acres as burdensome and unnecessary on behalf of both the applicant and the town. Further, that the commission grant the waiver request from section 6-81 through 6-86 dealing with stormwater management. Both cases associated with the application submitted as an application of Wayne and Patricia Fraser of 22 Gurley Road, East Lyme, Connecticut, applicant owner. The application for a one-lot re-subdivision of approximately 3 acres, zoned R10 at 22 Gurley Road, East Lyme, assessors map number 37.0, lot number 20, and waiver requests as stated 4-2-3 Juliet and section 6-8, noting that section 6-8-7 provides for waivers on subdivisions consisting of 3 lots or less, specifically addressing stormwater runoff and the town engineer's assessment that conditions are satisfactory for this waiver.
Thank you, Frank. Do I hear a second?
Second.
I heard Rita. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any nays? Abstentions? Motion passes 6-0. That brings us from the waiver to the general application, so fresh motion. Again, with respect to this one, Gary, we don't need to provide any reasoning, right? It's just, the reasoning was for the waivers.
Well, yeah, so at this point, the findings are for the waiver. At this
Yeah.
point, with the waivers granted, you would just find that the application meets or does not meet the subdivision regs.
Very well.
Yeah, just write that down.
So it's,
You want to try it?
Not tonight.
so I guess it could be implied that by approving the application as it stands, it's implied that with the waivers, it meets the regulations.
Well, wouldn't it
Right,
be
so it's
simple?
not-
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Would a motion be required then, or not?
Yeah, oh, yes, yes.
Absolutely.
But wouldn't simple terms mean just not because it meets the requirements
I'll go
of the
for
lot
it.
size? So this way you shorten that whole thing
I
down?
think Frank's ready.
Ready?
A motion the commission vote to approve the application of Wayne and Patricia Fraser of 22 Gurley Road, East Lyme, Connecticut, applicant owner, application for a one-lot re-subdivision of approximately 3 acres zoned R10 at 22 Gurley Road, East Lyme, assessors map number 37.0, lot number 20, and waiver request from section 4-2-3 Juliet and section 6-8 of the East Lyme subdivision regulations pursuant to the previously granted waivers.
Thank you, Frank. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Ernie. Is there further discussion? I'd just like to make a comment for the record. This was, I think, the first time we got a response from the state archaeologist on coming down to look at the actual
Very
parcel.
quick.
Well, I would say it's not the first response we've had from the state archaeologist on
Right.
other applications. This is the first one we got that suggested a reconnaissance survey be conducted.
Exactly. And the letter from that archaeologist is...
Actually, I take that back. There was one other site in Black Point
Okay.
that the state archaeologist, although it wasn't Dr. Jones at the time, it was Nick Bellantoni. But yes,
Very well. I just wanted to say it's not something we do every day.
And-
Thank you for your patience going through it all.
He did come down and meet me on site in Gary Hills.
Right. Right. No, and I'm glad that it worked, and I hope it wasn't too much of an inconvenience.
Dr. Jones was surprisingly quick and nice.
Very, very nice to deal with, very fair. Took a good look at the land. It was very interesting. I came out and met with him, and I was just afraid of something, but you never know with the lands around Connecticut.
Oh, yeah. Very much so. I never know what you're going to find. Okay, so we have a motion and a second on the table. Is there further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? 6-0-0. Thank you. Moving back on to
Thank
our...
the planning commission for their work. Thank you.
Good luck, guys.
Yeah.
good touch.
Coming back online to our regularly scheduled agenda, we've got, we're going to move back to the top of public delegations. Is anyone here as a public delegation? Going twice. That brings us to approval of minutes. In your packets, you'll find the September 1, 2015 public hearing minutes, as well as the September 1 regular meeting minutes. We'll go through them one at a time. Do I hear a motion to approve the September 1 public hearing meeting minutes?
I make a motion to approve the September 1, 2015 regular member meeting minutes, sorry.
Do I hear a second?
Second.
That's Rita and then Joan. Is there further discussion? Any adjustments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 6-0-0. Minutes are approved. Next item, September 1, 2015 regular meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion to approve?
I make a motion to approve the September 1st, 2015 minutes.
Rita again. Do I hear a second?
Second.
Frank's got the second. Further discussion? Any revisions, adjustments? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Abstentions? 6-0-0. We're through our item 3. That brings us to our zoning referrals, Connecticut General Statute 8-3A. Proposed changes in zoning regulations or boundaries shall be referred to the Planning Commission for a report that shall contain the findings of the Planning Commission on a consistency of a proposed regulation or boundaries change with the plan of development and any other recommendations the Planning Commission deems relevant. Failure of the Planning Commission to report prior to or at the hearing shall be taken as an approval. The report of the Planning Commission regarding such proposal shall include the reasons for the Commission's vote and shall be incorporated into the records of any public hearing held thereon by the Zoning Commission. A proposal disapproved by the Planning Commission may be adopted by the Zoning Commission by a vote of not less than 2/3 of the members of the Zoning Commission. Item A tonight is the application of Theodore A. Harris for GDEL Residential B, LLC. Application for a text amendment to the East Lyme zoning regulations, section 11A922 Charlie, to increase the number of units from 280 to 400. As the Planning Commission knows, this was on our agenda last time, the Zoning Commission is going to be conducting kind of a overview presentation covering the whole arc of this project, including this most recent text amendment, on Thursday night. As we are now recording our meetings, I've asked Mr. Gaishel to post it as a planning meeting in case more than a quorum of us were to show. But as a result of having the video tools, I'm advocating that we set it up, we record that part of their meeting because it's simultaneously our meeting. And that way we don't have to come back here in 2 days. We can review it online from home. It'll be uploaded about 48 hours after the meeting. With respect to how we have it on our agenda tonight, we're more than welcome to begin deliberations or to talk about it. However, just for the sake of time, I was going to defer that until after we hear the zoning presentation, and then we can discuss it all at once.
So with that said, just for those of you looking at maybe at your calendar, after talking with the chair, my idea was let's hold a special meeting on the 29th and cancel our meeting on the 6th. Because zoning meets on October 1, and the problem is our regular meeting is the 6th. So any comment that we may not get into their public hearing record, because I cannot guarantee that they wouldn't close the public hearing.
And as we read in the fine print here, failure of the planning commission to report prior to or at the hearing shall be taken as an approval. So
yeah.
Sequence matters. What Mr. Gaishel and I have come up with is that we'd meet next Tuesday and then skip the first week of October.
No,
Sorry?
2 weeks from now,
Oh, 2 weeks from now.
29th.
29. And skip the...
That's a Tuesday
6th.
meeting.
It's a Tuesday meeting. It's just 1 week early. So sorry to run through all of that at once, but basically this Thursday that zoning will be presenting, and then we would deliberate on it on the 29th, vote on it, so that it's in their pile on their meeting October 1, or the October 6th to...
Right.
Oh, sorry, October 1.
31st, I thought, 2 days after.
They meet on October 1st.
Right.
Oh, no.
30 days in September.
Yeah, okay. That's November 1st, this one. Right? November 1st. I'm sorry, it's a 9/29.
Yeah, we can discuss it.
9/29, I got it. I'm off.
I just wanted to orient everybody on kind of the timeline of it, and if everyone's on board.
I can support the 29th.
Yeah, thank you. So that brings us to where we are now, and because we're going to be getting a lot of information from zoning and discussing it, this would be a great time to ask our town planner to maybe research or any specific questions we want to go over Frank's questions.
Well, Frank did reach out to me and gave me a small list of questions. So with that said, I think what's important to note is that the applicant is going to be giving a history of the project. He cannot talk about the text amendment because he's going into a public hearing. So he can't, quote, poison the well with the zoning commission. So he has to be very careful what he articulates to the commission.
Interesting.
So, with that, we'll start with Frank's first question. He wanted to know where the original plans were. So I have hard copies, but I was able to get this up and running. So the resolution here would probably be much better than what's on that.
No.
So this was the original.
If you do Control L, should go full screen.
Okay, so this was the original.
Oh, you're not using unregistered software, are you?
No. So this was the original proposal. And you'll see that there's a cul-de-sac here and a road and some houses. And there was a large outcry at the beginning from this neighborhood, I believe it's Bittersweet. Well, it's awfully close. And so they've subsequently, reverted to this plan. So this was the plan that they came back with to the zoning commission, and this was the master plan that was conceptually approved, and it provided this area of open space was 40 acres. And there was approximately 20-acre parcel here. That just kind of gives you an idea. Yes?
That first drawing, was that a 400-unit residential unit proposal as well? Were there more units in that first one?
I think more these were more like single-family units.
Okay.
So I think there was 400 in either case.
Yeah, I-95, Gary, just to orient everyone. I-95 is stretching along the south,
Yeah.
so north isn't perfectly to the top of the screen. Over on the right, Gary, can you show us where the church is? And yeah, that's there's a graveyard there just below your, yep.
Right
That's
here.
the graveyard. Flanders Four Corners is
This way here.
just over there.
This is Church Lane here.
That's
This is Route 1.
the old church in Flanders School. And then the subdivision at the top of the screen is like
So-
up H and Highway to get to.
Right, and this is Bittersweet Drive here, and this large vacant area is the open space that was associated with that subdivision.
Okay.
Could you point out the wetlands?
Difficult to see on this. You'll see there's a dashed line here that my cursor's kind of following, and there's a wetland through that area. There's another wetland down in this area. The hard copy, actually, as it pertains to that, might be easier. This might be easier to look at in terms of delineating the wetland. So you have this wetland over here.
Correct.
There's another wetland in this area here.
Okay.
I can see it right here. That's no
There's a
better.
wetland right here, and this wetland is associated with the Patagonia River.
Mm-hmm.
Well, is it the Patagonia River?
Well,
Runs
yeah,
down.
you had the Patagonia River that runs through it, and then you have a floodplain, which is the
Yeah.
boundary of the wetland.
The breach that they had, where was that?
Okay, so where we are today with this is what is presently being done.
Okay.
I can't see it now.
So
Thanks.
what I'll do is,
Brilliant.
We kind of need you could
I-
wear,
I-
you
I-
could wear it like a
Yeah,
sandwich
put it up
board,
there.
Gary.
But
I have
before
a-
you jump, can I just, just to get us oriented and have
Just need a
perspective on
strap.
this? Tell me if I'm wrong, is this a cash true value?
yes,
And the driving range would be here, and this is a parcel that we had option to buy at that point?
yes.
And what is represented right there? What is that?
That's the pool company.
More development,
Gateway.
commercial development,
Good, the
yes.
commercial portion, that's
And
what I'm
this is
asking.
a
Yes.
road?
That's a spline road,
That's
yes.
a road.
It
That's
connects
like
with East
two
Society.
accesses to the people up here.
And where's Costco in relation to that?
Right here.
Right, that's what I thought. Behind it is the other commercial that was part of the approved